to this workshop based on the EGOS map. My name is Adrian Freire. I'll just briefly introduce myself. I worked for various international and national companies. Then I went to Tokyo, Japan, where I took my PhD in business management. I came back to Europe and I became professor at the Portuguese Catholic University as well as at the Lisbon MBA. And I started my own firm, Strategos Institute, which is a management consulting and training firm. We work in strategy, innovation, organizational development projects for multinational firms, as well as large and medium-sized national ones in many countries. I'm also an invited guest speaker at international conferences, and I've wrote several books on strategy, innovation, internationalization, and organizational development. So what you know is that to create sustainable value over time, companies must fully integrate strategy formulation and execution. It's not enough to just formulate the strategy. You actually have to put it in place to achieve the desired goals. Now, what we also know is that many companies do not always take full advantage of their potential because of shortcomings in undertaking the formulation of the strategy or the execution or both. And the source of those difficulties obviously have to do with people, because it's always people who decide what to do, formulate the strategy, and put it in place, execute the strategy. So to better understand the business management side of companies, let's see the personal management side of companies. So let's try to understand people a bit better. What is personality? Personality is a person's typical and unique pattern of feelings, thoughts, and behaviors. All three together form your personality. What's interesting is that you're not always aware of your feelings, thoughts, and behaviors. Indeed, in most of your feelings are unconscious. You're feeling, but you're not aware that you're feeling. And even some thoughts are unconscious, as well as some behaviors. For instance, when you're presenting and maybe you're moving your hands or holding something and turning it around, and you don't really notice it, meaning you're not conscious of it, but everybody else sees it and realizes that you're doing something with your hands. So those are unconscious behaviors. To better understand this combination of consciousness and unconsciousness, let's go over to the Johari Window, which is a framework that combines consciousness with knowledge. Knowledge, my own knowledge, of course, and the knowledge of others, right? So let's see 4 different parts of your personality presented here on the Johari Window. The first one is the open area. So I'm conscious about it, of course, and others can see it because it's a public behavior, so therefore it's an open area. Now, another area of your personality is called a secret area. Now here, I'm the only one who's aware of it. Nobody else knows about it because they cannot see it, okay? Another interesting part of your personality is the blind area. Here, actually others realize that you're doing something or that you're probably thinking about something, but you are not aware of it. You're not conscious of it. And finally, the most intriguing part of your personality, it's called the closed area. Now, the closed area includes everything that you're not aware of and others are not aware of either because they cannot see it. And what's surprising is that this closed area influences all others. So it's not as closed as you would expect. Actually, there's something going over to all the other parts of your personality, okay? So where are feelings most perceived on this Johari Window? Obviously on the closed area. Not only on the closed area, but most of them are perceived here, so they're unconscious to you. But as mentioned, feelings impact on all of your personality. Then comes the thoughts. The thoughts are mostly perceived in the secret area, meaning they're mostly conscious, not always, but mostly conscious, and obviously others cannot perceive it. And behaviors are pretty much all over the Johari Window. So if you want to really understand people, you have to realize that you don't even understand yourself fully. So you have to get to know yourself better, and only then start to realize how others are. And when you realize how others are, it's easier to actually understand how people behave in a business environment. So it's important to realize that people always feel, even if unconsciously, before they think or do anything. So feelings are always there. As we saw in the Johari window, feelings are mostly perceived in the closed area, but they do get out and they influence all other parts of your personality. So when you're interacting with people, you have to take into consideration that you're experiencing feelings and they are experiencing feelings too, and those feelings are impacting in the way that you and they communicate and work together. So for you to develop bridges to everybody else around you, you better pay attention to those feelings. For psychological as well as biological reasons, each person combines in a unique way 4 personality profiles, the EGOS profiles. So let's get to know them a little bit better. Starting with the E, the entrepreneurs. Entrepreneur characteristics are associated with people who are very competitive, direct, they say what they think, goal-oriented, they want to achieve high goals all the time, they're very challenging, they like to put themselves into new challenges all the time, they love to take risks, and they are change agents. From a biological perspective, entrepreneurs are very sensitive here in the back in the occipital lobe, which controls the sight, the vision. So entrepreneurs are very visual people. You know, graphs, colors, images, that's what they memorize, that's what they apprehend very easily. Then we have the G, the governors. The governors live according to the rules. That's why they have this name. They care about all the details. They're very analytical, very rigorous. They follow the rules. And they are process-oriented. What comes first? What comes next? There's a sequence. So let's see what is this sequence. Logical, always weighing the pros and cons of all options. They tend to avoid risks. They don't like to make mistakes, and they prefer to take a little bit longer to check everything before they actually decide. And they tend to be very reliable people. Now, from a biological perspective, governors are very active here in the frontal lobe, which controls the reason, the logical part of your brain. Going over now to the O, to the operational profile, these people are very regular, persistent, they keep on doing their work. They're more execution-oriented. They avoid making tough decisions. The pressure of making these kinds of decisions is something that they prefer to avoid. So they're hands-on, team-based work or individual work. They relax. They improvise a lot. They don't really follow the rules. That's too much pressure. They're quite malleable, meaning you can tell them what to do and they will eventually do it. Okay, so from a biological perspective, operations are very sensitive in the top, in the parietal lobe, which controls the smell and taste senses, which are not very relevant in a typical professional environment, but the touch, the tactile sense is relevant to work with machines, for instance, to be very agile in adapting to different types of work, and even to work on the computers, of course. And the last EGOS profile is the S, the socials. So the socials are people who are very inspiring, always have something nice to say to other people. They're popular in the sense that people like them because they are people-oriented. They communicate a lot, either through talking. The more extroverted ones talk more, and the more introverted ones listen more. And they always have some motivational aspect to share with everybody else. They're also very creative in the sense of kind of open creativity, out-of-the-box ideas. They are not always easy to understand by others, but that eventually may make sense. So the socials, from a biological perspective, are very sensitive here on the side in the temporal lobes, which control the hearing sense. So they're very auditive people. The sounds is what matters most to a social. Their high emotional intelligence allows them to realize from the sounds how is the other one feeling, how are we getting along based on the kind of sounds that he or she is making when he or she talks, right? So this special auditive sense is quite relevant for interacting with others, and that's also why socials are so good at interacting with other people. Also interesting is to realize that when we put them all together, we come up with a 4x4 matrix called the EGOS map, which is then subdivided furthermore in smaller parts, but that's more of a technical issue. And on the EGOS map, your personality is presented in a way that allows you to realize what's your predominant profile, maybe your second profile, and the other ones are less relevant, so they don't show up so clearly. But this EGOS map not only considers biological and psychological basis, but as you will see, it also has a very sound business managerial as foundations. So that's why it actually incorporates, it can be easily related to many concepts and frameworks, not just from social sciences, but also from business management. And that's why I developed the EGOS map. I've worked with other very good psychometric approaches, such as MBTI, DISC, and many others, but I came to realize that they're focused mainly on soft skills, you know, communication, motivation, leadership, teamwork, which is very important. But in a business environment, you also have to consider the hard skills, the marketing, strategy, finance, all those areas that you're aware of, that you have to master to become a good manager, but from a psychometric perspective, were not easily understood. So I developed the EGOS map precisely to get a better understanding of how to approach also the hard skills with personality. So once you understand the soft and the hard skills of people, you're in a much better condition to actually integrate business with people, to realize how people influence the formulation of strategies as well as the execution of those strategies. We will address many applications of the EGOS map in a professional environment, but keep in mind that if you want to go deeper and understand in more detail the EGOS framework and its professional as well as personal topics, there's a book that you might be interested in buying called the EGOS map, which is available in bookstores and online.